Security market indexes, your end of chapter questions extracted from your CFA curriculum. Question number 1. A security market index represents what? A security market index represents the risk of a security market? No. It represents value of security market segment or a particular asset class, not risk. Security market as a whole? No. Most of the indices track only some part of the market, not the whole. Could be, but mostly indices are made from some part of the security market. Only a certain part, a selective, a representative sample or representative constituent part rather than the whole market. So this is not a true statement as well. Then a security market index represents security market or a market segment or an asset class. That's a textbook approach, a straightforward textbook question. So security market index represents security market segment, market as a whole, or an asset class. So that makes C to be the correct option. Next, security market indices are what? Let us move in the reverse order so that we put equal emphasis on every option. It is always recommended that whenever you're doing MCQs, you must have a very good reason for rejecting an incorrect option, and you should have a very good reason for selecting the correct option. Okay, so moving in the reverse order, security market indices are valued on a regular basis using actual market price of the constituent securities. Not always. Not always actual market price. Why? Because in fixed income indices, bonds may not have any market value, they are illiquid. So you can use estimated market price in some cases, but not actual market price all the time. So this is incorrect. See, so something about fixed income which we may have missed has been covered here. Why? Because in fixed income securities indices, there are no actual markets. Then what we do? We use estimated markets. So that's why we don't always use actual markets. So this option is incorrect. Then security market indices are simple interchangeable tools for measuring the return of different asset classes. Now this could be debatable. Different asset classes will point us in incorrect direction because either it's a market, a particular segment, or an asset class. Single asset class. Classes will aggregate the results, so that's not what we want. We want to track a performance of a particular asset class or a market segment. So that is incorrect. Then security market indices are constructed and managed like a portfolio of securities, like a collection of securities. That's the right description, and that's why A is the right result. Next, when creating a security market index, an index provider must first, that's the important point, first determine the target market. Yes, that's what he should do first. Appropriate weighting method, that comes later, maybe second or third step, but the first step is to select the target market. So this is incorrect. This is not the first step. The number of constituent securities, that will again come later. First you have to select the target market, and from that target market you will select certain constituent securities and assign weights. But the first step is to select the target market. This is the first step. So A is the correct option without doubt. Next, 1 month after inception, the price return version and the total return version of a single index consisting of identical securities and weights will be equal. Now, what is the difference between these two? Price return only tracks price, right? Price increase, decrease. But when you say total return index has two components: increase or decrease in price, capital gains, plus any dividends or interest, right? So if they are the same securities, they have the same weights, if the index is still the same, it means there would be no dividend and interest. If you remove dividend and interest, your price return index and your total return index will give the same results if there are no dividend interest. So that makes C to be the correct option. The securities do not pay dividends and interest because these two things are added in the price return to give you the total return. Since they are zero, hence only C would make it the correct option, and C it is. Next, the value of a price return index and a total return index consisting of identical equal weighted dividends paying equities will be equal only at inception. Yes, only at the start, right? Price index and return index, they will be same at the start, but as the time passes, there will be the changes in price that will track the price index, and there will be some dividends and interest earned. So that's why later on there will be differences. So they will be same at the inception, but as the time passes, they will differ when incomes, dividends start flowing in. So only at inception they are the same. So that makes A to be the correct option. Next, now we have some computational questions here. An analyst gathers the following information for an equal weighted index. Priced of assets Abel, Baker and Charlie. These are the opening prices. These are the ending prices. And this is the total dividend. What exactly is needed? Just the price return. We just have to calculate the price return. Since it's equal weighted, and I gave you a simple idea, if it's equal weighted, we don't need to take the number of shares. Just calculate how much return has been generated by individual asset and then take the average. 10, 12, 2 by 10, 20%. 2019, only price. I'm not taking returns here. So then the return here is negative 1 based upon 20. It will give you negative 5%. The last, there is no return at all. So the total is 20 minus 5, 15%. Since there are 3 securities, 15 by 3, 5%. So the return will be 5. That B makes it to be the correct option. Right? So you just need to take, if it's equal weighted, you'll simply take the individual returns on the securities and take the average. Next, an analyst gathers the following information for an equal weighted index. But now we have to calculate the total returns. When you say total returns, that includes the price appreciation or decrease as well as the dividends or interest generated. So what you will do here, 10, 12, 2 is the increase in price plus 0.75 dividends is going to be 2.75 based upon initial price, that's 27.5%. 2019 negative 1 plus 1, it's basically 0. This one 30, 30 same, you got 2 dividends, so 2 is what percent of the initial beginning price, that is 66.667. Adding these 3 and dividing with 3, we did this a little while ago, it's 11.39%, so that's approximately 11.4. That makes C to be the correct option. All right, moving on. Question number 8, this is again the price return, but this is the price weighted index. Price weighted. What you do in the price weighted, just focus on price. This is the opening price. Adding all these together, 25, 35, 15 will give you a total of 75. And these are the ending prices. 27, 25, 16 gives you a total of 68. So basically there is a decrease in the overall price, that is negative 7. And it is what percentage of the beginning price, negative 7 by 75, that's basically negative 9.33%. And that makes B to be the correct option. All right, next. An analyst gathers the following information for market capitalization weighted index. Now, this is market capitalization weighted index comprised of securities MNO, QRS and XYZ. Now, these are the beginning prices and these are the ending prices. Since we need to calculate the price return, not the total return, what you will do, you will calculate the opening market capitalization by multiplying these numbers, and then you will calculate the closing market capitalization, this price multiplied by these shares. So he would have done for you 25, 35, 1500 multiplied by the numbers outstanding. It's given right here. These are the opening values multiplied with the number of shares. This is the beginning period value, market cap. The closing cap can be calculated by multiplying the ending price with these shares, will give you 48.25 million. As you can see, the market capitalization has fallen over the period. By how much? Take the difference between these two and divide it with the original. What was the original capitalization at the start? That was 5,375,000, right? So the difference between these two divided by the original market cap will give you the price return index. It's not the total return, because when you say total return, you will have to incorporate the dividends as well. So this is negative 10.3 because market cap has fallen. So that's B. B is the right result. Next, I think now he's asking for the total returns. Now when you say total return, it has two components. One is the change in market cap plus the dividend over the period that has been earned. So what you will do, in addition to the market cap at the beginning, at the end, this is the market cap at the start, this is the market cap at the end, and this is the total dividends generated over the period, right? So what you will do here, you will simply add these two, 48.2 million, 25 million and 2.625 million, and calculate the difference between these two. This plus this minus this, right? Let me do it for you. 48.25 plus 2.625 million, that is 50.875 million, less 53.75 million. So basically this is what you have lost during the period, divided by the original market cap. It gives you 5.3488, negative 5.3488, which is approximately negative 5.35. So this is the market total return in value of the index, that is 5.35. That makes B to be the correct option. Okay, when creating a security market index, the target market determines the investment universe. This is the market from which you will select certain securities to become a part of your index as a constituent securities. So I think first statement is absolutely right. We need to look no further. When creating a security market index, the target market determines the investment universe from which you will select the constituents. Correct statement. The target market is usually broadly defined asset class. In fact, asset class is a narrow definition. Its asset class is a narrow definition rather than taking it as whole market, as a broad market. C, the target market determines the number of securities to be included in the index. The market doesn't determine how many securities should add. Rather, it's the committee, the index committee. Maybe you have constituted a committee that oversees the index constitution, reconstitution, rebalancing. So that committee would decide, not the target market. That's a ridiculous option. That's why A would be the correct one. When creating a security market index, the target market determines the investment universe from which you will select the constituent securities. Next, an analyst gathers the following data for price-weighted index. When you say price-weighted, gentlemen, please remember price-weighted is focusing only on the total price. We did it a little while ago. When it says value-weighted, that is the market cap-weighted. Price-weighted means you simply add up all the prices. You add up all these prices. So adding this 20, 50, 70, 70 plus 26, $96 or euros, that's the beginning price. Closing 20 plus 48, the 50, 70, 70, 30, 100. 100 euros. So the price has gone up by 4 euros. So 4 euros, what percentage of 96? 4 by 96. When you solve this, it should give you 4 by 96. It's about 4.166. That is the price weighted, where you simply take the prices and see the differences over the period. Had it been the equal weighted index, in that case you would have calculated the return for these separately, and you have added these results and divided with 3. That would have given you the equal weighted index. So in this case, we got our result, that is A 4.2 and 4.28 is. Next. An analyst gathers the following data for a value weighted index. When I said value weighted index, it means you're talking about the market price or market cap based index. We have been given 3 securities, security A, B, C. We have been given the opening prices and outstanding shares, closing price and outstanding shares. What you will do, you will calculate the market cap at the start and market cap or the market value weighted index or market cap weighted index, market capitalization weighted index. So you will calculate the opening market cap multiplying these individual prices with the securities. 20 times 300 plus 50 times 300 plus 26 times 2000 gives you 73,000. So this is the opening market cap, opening market value. Closing is 22 times 300, 48 times 300, 330 times 2000. It will give you 81,000. Now see the change in the market cap over the period. It is 8,000 pounds, and it is what percentage of the starting market cap? That is 73,000. So 8,000 by 73 multiplied by 100 gives you a total of 11.0. That makes B to be the correct option. Next. An analyst gathers the following data for an equally weighted index. Equally weighted index. Now this is again, when it says equally weighted, we will take simply each asset separately, calculate its returns, and once the returns are calculated, we'll divide it 3. That's what we do with equally weighted. So what we will do here, we will calculate the return for the first stock A. How much price is appreciated to based upon 22 by 20, that is 10%. 52 fell 48, -2 by 50. When you convert into percentage, that is -4%. And 26 to 30, the increase of 4. 4 by 26 times 100, that will give you 15.38. Adding 10, less -4, add 15.38. All these percentages added and divided by 3 will give you 7.13%. This is equal weighted index, where we calculated the returns on all these 3, added these returns and simply took the arithmetic mean of returns. This is equally weighted index. That makes C to be our correct option. And C he goes a long way. We don't need to do that. No need to assume $1,000 invested here. Simply for equally weighted index, you simply take the returns on individual constituent securities and take the arithmetic average. Khalas, straight, single one-step game. Make things easier for you rather than just assuming investments and buying shares and then calculating the value again. Simply waste your time. Which of the following index weighting methods requires an adjustment to the divisor after a stock split? Fundamental weighting doesn't depend upon the stock price. It depends upon price earning multiples, depends upon free cash flows, earnings, dividends. Market capitalization weighting, it doesn't depend upon, or it is not affected by the stock split, because market cap stays the same. What does it mean? Why for market cap stays the same? Let's say you have just a common example, you have a 500 Indian rupee note, right? It's a single currency note. If you divide it in 5 equal parts by taking chutta or change, that will be 100 rupees, 100, 100, 100, 100. So first it was single currency note 500. Now there are 5, 100, 100. So still the amount is the same. So that's why split has not affected the market price of the currency note. The price is still the same. So that's why when there is a stock split, the market capitalization would stay the same. It's just that the market price will fall, but the number of shares have gone up, but in total the amount of market cap stays the same. So that's why market capitalization weighting is not affected. Yes, if it's price weighting, it will be affected. for price weightings, we will have to adjust the denominator. Just an example, let's say your market price sum is 120, there are total 4, number of shares 30. Let's say there has been a stock split. Numerator changes from 120, let's say, to 90. Now, what should be the denominator now? We can't change the total value of index because split doesn't mean there is a change in index. So index stays the same. Denominator will now be, divisor will now be revised. Now it is going to be 90 by 30. So the new divisor will be 3 now. So that keep the index same. So this is the old index composition. This is the new one, 90 upon 3 is equal to 30. So next time when you will calculate the index value, the denominator will now be 3. This is how stock split is incorporated into the denominator. So as the number of stock splits go up, the denominator will continue to fall because Dow Jones Industrial Average initially had a denominator of 30 because there are 30 stocks. But since there have been so many stock splits, so this number has fallen considerably over the period. A is the right result. Dow Jones Industrial Average is a price weighted. Remember, gentlemen, we discussed it a little while ago. Next, if the price return of an equal weighted index, you have returns of A% from stock A, B% from stock B, and C% from stock C. And if you divide this with 3, this is what you call the equal weighted index. That's what we discussed a little while ago. Simply the arithmetic return of the individual constituent securities will give you the return in an equal weighted index. If the price return of an equal weighted index exceeds that of the market capitalization weighted index comprised of the same securities, there are 3 securities A, B, C, but equal weighted index returns are more than the market capitalization based returns, then what could be the reason? If there are stock splits do not affect the market cap weighted index. Stock splits do not affect the equal weighted index. Stock splits have no effect on both, so this is not the reason. Dividend distributions. Dividend distribution affect market cap total return index. It also affects the equal weighted return index. So since it's affected by both, we want to see the reason that is present in one case and not the other. This is the one. Outperformance of small market cap stocks. Small market cap stock, those stocks that have low market capitalization, they have more weight in equal weighted index. Right? Simple, same example, ABC. Let's say C is a small cap stock. C has a weight of 33.33% in this index. Equal weighted index means all these stocks have equal weight. So C has a weight of 33.33 being equal weight. But since C is a small cap stock, its market capitalization is small. So it might be a very small, insignificant part of a market capitalization weighted index. Maybe, let's say 3% only. Now that is the reason. Now since small cap stock has a significant high weight compared to a market weighted index, that is why any change in price here would have a larger impact upon the equal weighted index than the market cap index. That is the point. Outperformance of small market cap stock. If a small market cap stock outperforms, this outperformance will be greatly magnified in the equal weighted index, but this outperformance will be slight change in the market capitalization weighted index, and that is the justifiable reason, gentlemen. C is the right result. C it is. That's how you need to read every option. You need to justify, convince yourself that you got the right result. Next, a float adjusted market capitalization weighted index weights each of its constituent securities by its price multiplied by what? Let's say current share price of a constituent security in a float adjusted index is 50. This firm has 100 shares outstanding, but out of these 30 are tightly held by some institutional investors or maybe some owner directors. Only 70 are in the market, which is called free float or float. That will be multiplied with this to give you the market. So a float adjusted market capitalization weighted index weights each of its constituent securities by its price and trading volume, not volume. The number of shares outstanding, this is the number of shares outstanding, 100, not 100. Then what? The number of shares available to the investing public, that is 70. That's what you call the float available for general people for investment. 50 by 70, so without doubt that makes C to be our correct option, and C it is. Next, which of the following index weightings method is most likely subject to a value tilt? Equal weighting, weighted equally. Fundamental weightings, where the weight is assigned based upon your earnings, based upon your dividends, based upon your cash flows. So if more weight has been assigned to a certain firm because of its earning, so we are tilting more towards one stock or one or few combination of stocks. This is called value tilting. You're tilting or leaning towards the stocks that have a higher fundamental weighting. That is the reason. Right, so look no further, B is the right result. Next, all right, option. Rebalancing an index is the process of periodically adjusting the constituents. Rebalancing is what basically? It's a textbook based question. What is rebalancing? Rebalancing an index is the process of periodically adjusting the constituent securities weights. Yes, that's true. That's the adjustment of weights to optimize the investment performance. No, this is wrong. This is never an objective. We are just rebalancing our index so that to maximize the index return. No, this could be a very, very unethical approach. That's not the objective of the index. Wrong. Then for what? Adjusting the constituent securities to maintain consistency with the target market. This is not an objective of index rebalancing. What is basically the index rebalancing? It's just a textbook approach. If you know the exact description of rebalancing, you will know that securities weights are adjusted to maintain consistency with the index weighting method. That is rebalancing. Without doubt, a textbook approach that gives you C to be the correct option. Next, which of the following index weighting methods requires the most frequent rebalancing? Most frequent rebalancing. In price weighting, effectively there is no rebalancing. It's just that the denominator divisor is changed because of stock split, stock repurchase, or the bonus stock, or which you call the stock dividend. Market capitalization does not require any rebalancing, because if there is a stock split, the price of the stock will go down, but the number of shares will go up, so the total market cap stays the same. Even if there is a reverse split, when smaller denominated stocks are combined to form a larger stock, like for example, maybe 1 for 5. 5 smaller stocks are being joined to form a one stock. So the price would go up, but number of stocks will go up, number of shares will go down, total market cap stays the same. So this does not require any changes in weights, auto adjusts. Yes, when the index is equal weighted, changes in the price in the constituent securities may require us to rebalance the index. Without doubt, B is the right answer. I love doing questions. I just wish I had to do questions and questions only. Reconstitution of a security market index reduces what? Portfolio turnover. What basically is a portfolio turnover? Portfolio turnover measures how frequently, how quickly securities in an investment fund are bought and sold, bought, sold, bought, sold, bought, sold. This is called portfolio turnover. You buy, sell. You are a portfolio manager. You buy, sell, buy, sell. You keep on doing that. How frequently do that? That is called the portfolio turnover, right? How frequently you buy and sell the constituent securities in your portfolio. This is called portfolio turnover. So reconstitution of security market index reduces portfolio turnover? No. When the index is reconstituted again and again and again, the portfolio manager will have to change the positions, so he may have to sell some securities and buy some securities. So basically, reconstitution of security market index increases portfolio turnover, not reduces. That's the wrong option. Then, reconstitution of security market index reduces the need for rebalancing. This is reconstitution, gentlemen, and this is rebalancing. Reconstitution and rebalancing are two different things and are not necessarily related or correlated that they move in the same direction. So this is not the right option. Then what should it be? C. Reconstitution of a security market index reduces the likelihood that the index includes securities that are not representative of the target market. That's the correct. Why do we reconstitute? We remove certain securities that are no longer a representative of the target market. So reconstitution of security market index reduces the likelihood that index includes securities that are not representative of the target market. It's a perfect description. Read it twice so that you make full sense out of it. Next, security market indices are used as what? Security market indices are used as measures of investment returns. Could be used, but there are some other, because not all indices determine return. Price return and total return. So maybe there is the price return can be measured. What about if I want to measure the total return? So it's not that you will be able to measure the return based upon index alone, right? So security market indices are used as measure of investment returns. Not entirely true. It partly helps you to calculate the return, but not all. Security market indices or indexes are used as proxies to measure the systematic risk. Index are used as proxies, as estimations to determine the systematic risk, not the unsystematic risk. Unsystematic risk is diversifiable. You can diversify your investment in multiple investments to reduce the risk. That is unsystematic risk or diversifiable. Systematic risk is the risk of the system. And we measure the risk of the system through beta or beta. And this beta is measured through a proxy through security market index. So not unsystematic risk. That makes this option incorrect. Then security market indices are used as proxies for specific asset classes in the asset allocation models. Yes, we use security market indexes so that we can take different position and different assets in a particular investment portfolio. That is the correct option and hence our right result. Next, uses of market indices do not include serving as a, again, we need to focus exactly on the key term here. Do not. Uses of the market indices do not include serving as a measure of systematic risk. Not a measure of systematic risk. Basically, it's proxies to measure systematic risk. Serving as a measures, not serving as a proxies to measure systematic risk. So use of market indexes do not include serving as a measure of systematic risk, rather proxies of systematic risk, measure systematic risk. This is the correct option. What about B and C? Had it been do not, then we would have to put proxies here. Use of market indices includes serving as a proxy measures of systematic risk. Since he has put do not, and that's why we have to remove proxy, so that will make this option to be the correct one. So use of market indices do not include serving as a basis for new investment products. Now this is a wrong statement. Why? Because we do use market indices to introduce new investment products. We can bring in a new index fund that tracks a certain index, right? So indices are used. They do serve as a basis for new investment products, like for new index funds, for example, that tracks a certain index. This is a true statement. And this do not make this incorrect. Use of market indices do not include serving as a benchmark for evaluating portfolio managers. They also serve as a benchmark, indices serve as a benchmark. So it's a true statement. Since we needed to select the untrue or false statement, so A is false or untrue. And that is your right answer. Next. Which of the following statements regarding sector indexes is most accurate? Sector indexes. Health sector, auto sector, for example. Most accurate. Sector indexes track different economic sectors and cannot be aggregated to represent the equivalent of broad market index. Sector indexes, true, they track different economic sectors, but why they cannot be aggregated? They can be aggregated. Indexes can be aggregated. This is the wrong. You have different sector indexes. You can combine them to form an overall performance measure of any combination of sectors, different economic sectors. They can be aggregated. This is wrong statement. We are looking for the one that is most accurate. Sector indexes provide a means to determine whether an active investment manager is more successful at stock selection or sector allocation. Yes, you can compare the return generated by his portfolio versus the index return. This will help us. It's a benchmark that can help you to assess the performance of the portfolio manager, an active manager. So this is a true statement. We can use it as a benchmark. Sector indexes apply a universally agreed upon sector classification. Now this will make it offensive. There is no such thing as universally agreed upon classification. I can construct any index I want. You may construct any index you want. So there is no universally agreed upon sector classification system. There is no standardization. Just because of this, I won't read the next part and I will simply reject this. So we have B as our correct option and B is the result, or right option. Next, which of the following is an example of style index? An index based upon geography, that's a regional index. Index based upon a particular economic sector, that is a sector index we were just talking about earlier. Then what? A style index is a market capitalization index. We could use market capitalization, it's one of the options. So style index could be value stock, could be growth. So these measures are the basis of style indexes. So that makes C to be our correct option. Market capitalization, value growth, or combination of these characteristics. Next, which of the following statements regarding fixed income indices is most accurate? Most accurate. Liquidity issues make it difficult for investors to easily replicate fixed income indices. That is true. Since fixed income securities are not liquid, because of this illiquidity, it becomes difficult for the investor to easily replicate fixed income indices. He can't, because he can't buy, sell because there's no liquidity. This is a true statement. Rebalancing and reconstitution are the only sources of turnover in fixed income indices. Not necessarily. There are many bonds, redeemable bonds, many bonds that are convertible bonds. So rebalancing and reconstitution is not the only. There are many other things through which there might be recomposition or reconstitution of your index. Redemption, conversion, callback, puttable. So this is a false statement. Fixed income indices representing the same target market hold similar number of bonds. False. Numbers can greatly vary among indices. I may have 100 bonds in my index, you may have 50. So it's not that we are in the same sector or same type of assets. We may not have the same number of indices in securities in our index. This is false. Similar number of bonds in same indices, me versus yours, that is not a possibility. Not always true. That's why A is our right answer. Next, 27. An aggregate fixed income index comprises corporate and asset-backed securities. Well, it can also carry government bonds or the government agency bonds. When you're talking about aggregate, why are you excluding government or agency bonds? Why only corporate and asset-backed bond? Government is also one of the major issuers of bonds. So how can we exclude government in our aggregate fixed income index? That makes option A to be incorrect. Aggregate fixed income indexes represents the market of government issued securities. Now this is partly true again. What about the corporate bonds? So these two combined, A and B, will make correct option since they are talking one aspect at a time. Hence both are incorrect. Then aggregate fixed income indices can be subdivided by market, yes, or economic sector, yes, to create more narrowly defined index. That's a perfectly agreeable statement, without doubt. It's C. Next, fixed income indices are least likely constructed on the basis of, they can be constructed on the basis of maturity, yes. They can be constituted based upon the type of issuer, government or corporate sector, yes. But coupon of frequency, this is not the basis on which we constitute indexes. This is because frequency could be twice a year or yearly, but that could not be the justification because we can always annualize the returns. We can convert it into annual percentage rate. So this is not the reason we can classify these, not the basis in fact. So that's why C is your right answer. Next, commodity index values are based on, we just discussed a little while ago, commodity index value is based upon the future contract price, not on the current spot price of the commodities. The market price of the specific commodity, related but not dependent. The average market price of the basket of similar commodities know a particular commodity from the future contract. That's the dynamic of the commodity index. Look no further, A is the right result, or right option. Next, which of the statement is most accurate? Commodity indexes all share similar weighting methods. This is false. How can have all weights? Wrong. Commodity indexes containing the same underlying commodities offer similar return. This is again not true. How can the same compose? Because dynamics constitute securities may be different, the weights could be different. Not necessarily, index composition could vary. Since they could vary, so how can they have same returns? So this is not always true. C, the performance of commodity index can be quite different from that of the underlying commodity. Yes. Why is it so? Because commodity index are based upon the future contract price and not the current market price of the commodity, and that is the reason why C is the right answer. Performance of commodity index can be quite different from that of the underlying commodity, because underlying commodity are traded on the spot market, whereas the commodity index, its valuation, its gain loss is dependent upon the commodity's futures. So that makes C to be our correct option. Next, which of the following is not a real estate index category? For that you need specific reading. Appraisal index is one of the index category. Repeat sales is one of the index category. They are given listed there. It's a textbook question. If you've read it, you will be able to do it. But this is not a categorization given in the text. Initial sales index. It's not a real estate index category. So that's B, and B it is. Next, a unique feature of hedge fund indices is that they are frequently equal weighted. It's a true statement, by the way. Yes, hedge funds are frequently equal weighted, but this is not a unique feature that is unique to hedge funds alone. We have equal weighted equity indices as well. So this is not something unique to hedge funds. Find something that is specifically unique feature of hedge funds alone. So this is true, by the way. This is not a wrong statement, but that is not unique to hedge funds. We have other equity indices that might be equally weighted. So I cross this one. A unique feature of hedge fund indices is that they are determined by the constituents of the index. If let's say my hedge fund index contains these four indices, A, B, C, D. What would be the index return is determined by these constituents. Maybe C will not report. Then I have just these three returns to be incorporated. That's the problem, because in hedge funds, reporting is not mandatory. It's voluntarily. They want to disclose this information to the index managers, otherwise they can't. So it's determined by the constituents of the index. Some may report, some may not report. So a unique feature, this is unique, but equities under the regulation have to disclose the returns, the dividends. They are reported to the SEC. So that's unique to the hedge funds. A unique feature of hedge funds indices is that they reflect the value of private rather than the public investment. Wrong. Public-private investment could be made in equity securities as well. So this is not a unique feature differentiating hedge funds against the other equity investment indexes. So that makes B to be our correct option. The returns of hedge fund indices are most likely upward biased, because out of these 4 constituent hedge funds, those hedge funds will report that have good returns. B has bad returns, it will not report. So that's why hedge fund indices are mostly upward biased. They tend to show good result, not bad result. Because as I said, it's voluntary performance reporting, so they will only report what is good. It's also called survivorship bias. Poor performing funds will be less likely to report their performance. So that's why the funds only tend to show upward bias. And then finally, in comparison to equity indices, the constituent securities of fixed income securities are more liquid. Wrong. Less liquid. Easier to price. Wrong. Difficult to price, because they do not have active market, so we may have to estimate its price. Actual price may not be available. So they are less liquid, they are difficult to price, then it has to be C then. In comparison to equity market indices, the constituent securities of fixed income indices are drawn from a larger investment universe. That is the right option, and that ends your security market indices EOCs.